Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot, as always, is Steve Madura.
The one, the only.
We're two best friends that, despite being fathers and husbands, we just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 46. We release every Thursday morning on iTunes, Google Music, and Stitcher. And this week, we have a special guest, Steve.
Who is it?
Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this individual. He's a man of mystery. He's a man of comedy. He's a ladies' man. Ooh. He's a man of coffee. He's a man of video games. He's a man of all men. I mean, this man is like, you look up the definition in the dictionary, and you see a picture of Ed Placencia. Ed, how are you, my friend?
Good. I was waiting for you to say someone's name who I didn't realize was
Exactly. We have a fourth guest.
I know, right? Thanks for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure.
Oh, we are happy to have you here.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it, Spence? We've been asking for him, begging him. We finally had to pay him.
I know.
Right?
Seriously. That was a lot of money, too, by the way.
Checks
I'm enjoying
in the
this
mail.
$34.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I earned those 2 shekels all on my own.
That's right.
And what is this episode? What?
46.
46.
That's awesome. Congratulations, you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man.
46 straight weeks without missing a single one, except for that one that Steve missed, but I held it up.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, I got to bring it up.
One time.
One time.
Yeah, we actually celebrate every single episode. It's a big deal. Like, we're like, man, we made it.
We're still here.
Right?
So for us, this is kind of, old hat, but Ed, we basically just have a lot of fun and we try to, keep it together, but there's no plans. If it goes off the rails, we're totally fine.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Good. So,
Yes.
Ed, we're going to have you start off. You're our guest. Tell us what you've been up to this week, what's going on, and let us know how you're doing, man.
Doing well. Yeah, I've been looking forward to hopping on here with you guys. Like you said, it's been a long time coming, and it's been cool to see. I can't believe it's 46 already. I feel like you guys just started off, so that's so cool to see you guys so close to 50. It's so cool.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's I picked up Forza 7. Is that the new one?
7? Yes, I think so.
Whatever it is, I picked it up and playing that this week, driving around, and I really fell in love with Forza Horizon 3, the last one that came out, and I'd never really played a Forza game before, so was kind of pleasantly surprised that I liked Forza Horizon so much. And Forza 7, it's fun. I think I like the Horizon series better, just because it's more about the free roaming and little challenges, not just race after race after race after race.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's been fun. It's been a nice little distraction. I like that there's local co-op. So Sarah, my wife's jumped in a few times, and she said she'd be back and play more when I unlocked a Jeep for her. So I unlocked a Jeep, and we're looking forward to racing some more.
Nice.
So, it's been kind of a Forza weekend for me.
Now, are you a big race game fan? Are you?
No, not at all.
Is that kind of your shtick? No.
Yeah, I was, which is why when I played Forza Horizon, I was kind of surprised by how much I did enjoy it. So I thought, well, maybe I'll enjoy this one as much. It's fun, but it's been kind of a pleasant surprise to enjoy it as much as I have so far.
I enjoy the open road racing games, where you can kind of do your own thing somewhat, or follow like a loose track, but like it's a little more open. I tried playing a NASCAR game back on the N64. I mean, many years ago. That's maybe like NASCAR 97. And I realized 2 things. 1, you just drive in an oval. And 2, I was slower than dirt, and I had no clue what I was doing or what I was supposed to be doing. It's like, I'm just hitting the gas. Why am I not going fast? And everyone's like, you got to bump draft, and you got to... I was like, no.
Yeah. You got to bump... Robin is racing.
That's right. After that, it's like, I'll stick to Mario Kart where I can shoot shells at people.
There you go. Exactly.
One of my favorite racing games. I'm a big fan of racing games. One of my favorite racing games way back in the day was Rally Sport Challenge. I thought that was a great game.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to actually drive Rally Sport in real life. There's always like those $1,500 for a few laps around whatever. I'm always like, oh, one of these days. Why is our bank account a little less? I'm like, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Well, Ed, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're hanging out with us. I mean, I just want to say this to you publicly. You were one of the first people that I reached out to when I was kind of talking about this idea of forming a podcast and doing a podcast. And I reached out to you, and you graciously took my phone call, and we talked, and you gave me a lot of really great advice and gave me some things to think about and kind of helped steer this thing. So while as much as this is like mine and Steve's baby, you're like the godfather to this podcast.
I'm gonna have to kiss the ring. The door's gonna close. Weird. It just got weird.
You're just looking for a babysitter, I think.
That's exactly.
Well, I mean, occasionally.
For me or for his kids? My gosh.
For you, Steve. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's been. I was flattered that you would come to me and ask some questions and stuff, and you've just always been super cool, Spencer. And I mean, it's easy to be nice to someone who's already super nice to you. So it's.
The check is in the mail. Thank you.
Thank you. Another $44 for me.
Yes,
That's right.
3 shekels this time.
Well, no, seriously, opening the vault though, that's cool for somebody who hadn't done it before. I know this has been a brainchild of Spencer's for a long time, and we talked about it a few podcasts ago that it is so cool. You go on iTunes or Google Music or whatever, and you just see all these different people with all these different kinds of interests that have a voice, and it's really cool that podcasts have been so accessible for people, and it's been fun.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool outlet for a lot of people who might not get to have that outlet, especially if broadcasting is something that they're interested in, but they just don't know how to do it. I love that they can do it.
Yeah.
So here's something that's really interesting. Literally as I was getting ready for the show, a super friend of the podcast reached out to me, and I'm not going to name any names yet because this is kind of in the works, but he reached out to me, messaged me, and says, "Hey, a buddy and myself are thinking about doing a podcast, and I'm curious as to how you record and what you use to record and how you edit. Do you have some time that you could, talk with me and answer some quick questions?" And I said, I'm recording tonight, so I don't really have time. I said, but let's talk tomorrow night. I'm gonna have some time tomorrow night. I can, get on a call with you, and I can kind of walk you through our process and what's going on and other people I've talked to and things that I've found. And I was like, man, I feel like Ed must have about a year ago. This is amazing.
That's a cool place to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Such power.
Just the ability to say, hey, I know this much, just a little bit, but whatever I have to give, I'm going to do whatever I can to help someone else out. And it was kind of a cool opportunity. It's like, I'm
That's
being
cool.
looked up to.
Yeah.
They shouldn't do that, but I mean, that's cool.
So what have you guys found as you've done the show so far? What would you say is the most important thing that you've learned?
Ooh. A few, there's a few really, really key things. One, recording in a good location. To pull the curtain back a little bit and let you see the wizard. When Steve and I first started recording, Steve was in his basement in this room that was just concrete walls, and it gave a kind of a little background noise and then a reverb. And for the life of me, I could not edit that out as much as I tried, and as many filters as I tried to apply. And I started then I took a moment to critically think and say, okay, what's going on? Let me look at this. What's different between my setup? And I was like, oh, I'm in my living room with carpet and couches and drapes and all this stuff to help absorb the sound. And I went, of course, duh. I've been in bands and I've sang in, with musicals, and I've sang for, choral groups and whatnot. We never sang in a concrete room because that would have been horrible.
Except when we sing to the old folks in the county home. But whatever.
Yeah. Or those prisoners at the jail, but whatever. One time. So being situationally aware of where you're doing things and then the process. And we figured that out, and we made a slight move. Steve moved into the carpeted room in his basement that has curtains and couches, and all of a sudden the quality of audio jumped way up.
Yeah.
Drop 50 grand on a bunch of eggshell cartons around the
Right.
Eat more eggs, kids. We got to get them cartons on the walls.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say as well, a lot of podcasts that you listen to, they don't really take it. And I'll give Spencer a little bit of shout out here, a little kudos, is he is almost obsessive about just the quality and the sound. He really wanted to make sure that it wasn't, a lot of podcasts you listen to and they do these phone interviews and the quality is just horrible. Spencer spends a lot of time and I don't spend any time. Let's pull the curtain way back. I spend no time in post-production editing. He does it all. I just show up and blather on. So that's been really important. He's done a great job and the quality's just gotten better and better. He's done, sound effects, he's added the music and he's done all this and it really creates a really quality show. Which is great. I think the other thing that a lot of people do is they probably just use, maybe their computer microphone or whatever. And, with a little bit of money, I mean, you get a fairly good mic for $30-$40. You get a pop filter to take out some of those hard T's and S's and, a good set of headphones and you're pretty much good. So probably for under $100, you can get a quality show.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
and really good guests, by the way, as well. That's a really important thing.
Right. That's right. Our booking agent is on point.
Right.
Something I had a conversation with Gabe Patillo, which I know Ed and I are friends with. Ed's known Gabe for much, much longer than I have. But I was talking with Gabe, months and months and months ago, and he was talking about the editing process he goes through. And I was talking about how I was editing, and he's like, brother, you got to get onto something better. And so I switched my editing software, and it dramatically cut down the amount of time it takes me to edit.
Good.
And now I can edit on about a 1-to-1 ratio. So if we record 2 hours, I can have it edited in a little under 2 hours.
Nice.
Instead of hey, we recorded for an hour and it took me 5 to edit.
Right. Well, and that's how it's going to be when you first start off anyhow.
Right.
So.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, we've definitely had some great help along the way.
Yeah. Very cool. So, Spencer, how was your week, man? Let's find out how the old Stapleton clan's doing.
My week personally has been really, really good. I had a very fulfilling moment on Saturday. My motorcycle club goes out every year and we support local charities and we go on these rides. But the one we did this last weekend was the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Awareness Walk. And basically we show up and we have all of our motorcycles at the start line, and then we lead out the entire procession that's going to go on this 5K. And it's all these women who are either cancer survivors themselves of breast cancer, or, family members that have lost people, or family members that are supporting people, local businesses that are supporting the effort. And we lead them out, and then when we get back, we park our motorcycles at the finish line, and then we high five and hug and hold hands with pretty much everyone that comes across the finish line. And it's an event that, while I personally don't have many people in my life that have suffered this, I know it affects many, many, many people. And I know that at some point I'm going to have people that it's going to touch. So I support what they're doing, but then more important, it's a great opportunity that we get to show up and be a part of something bigger than ourselves and be a part of the community. And we don't have to go on this, 4-hour motorcycle ride. It's just a little quick jaunt, and then just a lot of, taking photos with people and hand holding and high fiving and just celebrating life. So I got to do that on Saturday. It was an awesome event. I look forward to it every year. It's one of the highlights. And then, I'm just hanging out with the kids the rest of the weekend, having a good time until Sunday hit, when they decided that they wanted to turn from being polite, wonderful, cute little boys to little boys who didn't want to respect anyone or anything and not listen to their parents and not eat their chili that was made for them for dinner and not take baths. And it was one of those parenting moments where you're like, I wanted this, right? This was a choice I made. Okay. Just checking. But otherwise, man, it's been really good. Work's going well. I'm going to be doing some extra work, but tonight, here's the cool thing. So tonight, we are purchasing tickets for Hamilton when we go to Chicago.
Oh, so cool.
So I've never seen Hamilton, and I know Ed a number. Gosh, when was this? Last year, maybe? Last year when it came out. It's been around for a year, 16 months, maybe somewhere around there. I remember, Ed, you started tweeting about you were just listening to Hamilton nonstop.
Yeah.
And so I started listening to it, and then I was like, okay, at some point I want to do this, because I didn't see Wicked on Broadway. Wicked actually came through Salt Lake, and I saw Wicked, but like I didn't know the music, and we kind of skimped out on seats. So like we were at the far back of the auditorium in these like nosebleeds. I couldn't see anything. I didn't know what was going on, and I did not have a good experience. And I grew up in the theater, and I'm a theater kid, so like I would think like this is like that was the big show at the time, and I was like, I don't, I just had this not great experience. So this time around, it's like, okay, we're going to Chicago for my reunion. I'm staying with Steve, and we're going to be down in his basement or one of his kids' rooms.
Nice.
And I was like, one
Gosh.
night, nice, yes. They got the little mini bike in there. I'm good.
That's right.
But one of the nights, we're just going to go out and kind of have like a little date night. And my wife desperately wants to go see Hamilton. I was like, let's get decent seats. Let's pay a little more than I probably would want to, and let's make this happen. So tonight we bought tickets for Hamilton, and so we're pretty excited.
That's awesome.
Now, Ed, let me ask you this. I mean, what do you think the difference is when you know the music and have listened to the music on a show versus when you haven't?
Especially for something like Hamilton, the first time I listened to it, I really enjoyed, especially just the music. But then the second time I listened, I went online and found a list of the lyrics because I just couldn't follow everything. And I got so much more out of it knowing what they were saying. So that definitely made a huge difference. I think if it's something like a Spam-A-Lot where you don't know what's coming, then not knowing the music beforehand can kind of add to the experience because you might get surprised by something they say or sing or whatever. So
yeah.
I guess it just depends on the show.
So Spencer, then you would kind of admit then that maybe the less than stellar experience you had with Wicked might have been user error?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was a cheapskate.
There's
no denying it.
So for those listening, like 3 minutes prior to the podcast starting, Spencer and his sweet wife were having a warm discussion about prices, and I assume were those Hamilton tickets? Was that what you guys were debating?
Yeah. Well, see, it's one of those things where like we kind of looked at the tickets we wanted, and we kind of said, okay, this is the price range that we're trying to look for.
College education for the kids.
And I said, okay, we're looking between two seats. And one was a little more expensive than the other. And she's looking, she's like, well, I think this one's fine. I said, let me ask you this. Price isn't an object. Between these two, which one would you rather sit in? And so she made the choice. And I said, okay, just go upstairs. You've got my PayPal account. Just, I've got to do the podcast tonight. Go ahead, purchase them. And then she walks back down. She goes like, well, if price isn't an issue, how do you feel about
you gave
this?
her a blank check, of course. What you gonna say?
And that's when I went, well, let's pump the brakes a little bit here.
Like kid in a candy store.
I was like, we do have to, pay a mortgage still this month. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Very good. Well, good for you,
that's
man.
So
That's
cool.
Our wives, man, they do so much for us. They go through so much. It's nice to be able to treat them to something they really enjoy, and that's going to be an awesome experience. I mean, that's going to be an awesome experience.
Well, Steve, tell us about your week, man. What's new with you? What's going on? What you doing?
Yeah. So I'll just kind of fast forward to the weekend. I had a really good weekend. On Saturday night, I was at the store getting some milk. Harry's like, go to the store, get some milk. So I'm there, and I text her and I said, do you want anything for dinner? Can I make anything? Because usually try to have like a nice dinner on Sunday night. And she said, yeah, just get something for the crock pot. And I was like, speaking of price isn't an option, I thought, you know what? Like, when you have you have these good meals, right? Like there are some good meals. What is in your mind, Spencer, a quintessential great meal?
Like just for me, something like I personally like, or just like what would be considered a great meal by normal?
What was considered like
a steak dinner maybe.
A steak dinner, okay, a steak dinner, maybe like a Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving, And I thought,
sure,
I want to have a Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm like, so I
wait, is that the picture you sent me tonight?
Yes, that's leftovers, baby.
Nice.
So I went ape crap crazy, man. I got like a 6-pound bird. We have two of us and some kids that don't eat meat, so I got this 6-pound turkey breast. I got like everything, mashed potatoes. I got potatoes to make mashed potatoes. I got the green bean casserole with the little French onions on top. I got candied cranberry sauce. I got gravy. I got rolls, everything. And I spent like until 2 a.m. on Saturday because it was already 11 o'clock when I was getting milk. And I made like all this huge concoction so that when she wakes up in the morning, I'm like basting the turkey in the crock pot and all this stuff. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Baby, we having Thanksgiving." The refrigerator's like stuffed to the gills. She's like, well, the kids aren't going to eat any of this. They're going to eat the rolls. I'm like, well, you better get on the phone and call somebody. So we had, I called my in-laws who've done a lot for us recently, watching the kids and stuff. So I had them over. I called my dad. And so it was a really cool thing that we got to sit around the table, and it's not obviously Thanksgiving. We're, a few months out. And I just said, you know what? Why wait until the end of November to have a great meal with family and friends? And one of the things that I love Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite holidays because it is not materialized at all. It hasn't been bastardized by, like most holidays. And it's just about the food and getting together with people you love. So I said,
awesome.
why wait to have a good meal? So I made this huge meal, and Carrie, it was awesome because everybody's like, oh, Carrie, this is so good. And she's like, I didn't do anything. I'm like, that's right. It was all me. So anyway, I was like,
really
kiss
cool,
the cook. So yeah, it was very cool. So that was a Sunday, and then today it was Columbus Day, and my wife took my kids and then two other kids, friends of my kids, to Six Flags Great America. And that's not the cool part because we have seasons passes and we live 10 minutes away, so we go all the time. The cool part is I get this message on my phone, my work phone, and I pick up the message, and it's like, "Hi, Daddy, this is Lila, my 4-year-old daughter. I just rode the Demon." I was like, what the what? And Ed, I don't know. Have you been to Six Flags? You live in Indiana, so you're kind of close.
No.
Okay. Well, the Demon, it has 2 loops and a corkscrew, and she is no bigger than my waist. And I'm like, I'm a father and I'm a roller coaster lover, but I'm like, what kind of park would let a 4-year-old ride this ride?
Right.
There's no way she's tall enough. Apparently she might be tall enough. I don't really know. But anyway, so she's like this little me, and she's all my kids love roller coasters, and I was worried about this last one, but have no fear. She's got it in the blood. So
That's
I was
awesome.
very, very proud of my little daughter
So
today,
cool.
little Lila Grace. So she rocked it.
Nice.
So anyway, my week's been good, and tomorrow's the day off as well. They've got some in-service things, so they're gonna have a whole 6-day weekend. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Daddy, can we go ride Shockwave? I want to do the 7 loop-de-loops.
Yeah, exactly. I regret nothing. Yeah. So anyway, all's good, and I am so happy to be here. And again, Ed, thank you so much for being on.
Yes,
and
thank you.
I don't know if
Thank
we
you
put a plug in for Ed and for what he does. Maybe we'll do it later, but
We'll do it now. We'll do it later. Let's do it both. So
yeah.
Ed, right
Cross-pollinate.
right at the top of the show, where are all the places people can find you?
I usually hang out at Twitter at Ed Placencia. I'm over on the Married to the Games podcast with Gabe and Tim and Chris and those guys.
I don't know if I've heard of that one. Is it pretty well received? I mean, does it do okay?
People usually mostly hate it.
People know me. I'm kind of a big deal.
Right. And so, and then I have a little podcast that I do on my own called Foot in the Door, where I'll have someone on every once in a while and chat about just whoever they are. Just an excuse for me to have a conversation with someone I look up to.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great podcast. I enjoy
you.
it every single time. And
That is really interesting.
I'm not gonna say anything, but I know some of the stuff that's upcoming on Foot in the Door.
Yeah.
and I'm really excited.
I'm really excited. I'll give you guys a scoop. I just a couple days ago got to talk with Aaron Avett, who is a voiceover actor who's been in pretty much every Telltale game.
That's so cool.
Wow.
Just a lot of fun and a really, really cool person. And if you've played any of the Telltale games, I often thought that she was using her natural speaking voice in the game because it doesn't sound like a quote-unquote voice.
Right.
And to actually speak with her, I didn't even recognize her voice. It was really
Wow.
incredible. So yeah, it was really cool.
That's so cool.
And I have to imagine, as a voiceover actor, she's got to have just a good voice anyway, right? Like,
It's funny because she is, I think she's 25 years old, and she just sounds like a 25-year-old California girl, just a regular,
Really?
And it's just really, really cool to hear her, the difference. I made a clip today and sent it to Gabe saying, here's her in the game and here's her regular speaking voice, and just really cool to see how she can just slightly change the pitch of her voice to sound totally different. It's a really cool craft that she's doing.
That is so
That
cool.
is awesome.
Sometime, Ed, we're gonna have to. I don't know what, but we're gonna have to just have a conversation about VO.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've talked with you a little bit. Like, I'm super interested in this idea. I've looked up the school that you've gone out in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Voice Tracks, right?
Right.
And and I'm gonna plan on. I was gonna try to get out this fall, but I'm gonna try to. I think a little later in the year, or early next spring.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to make my way out there and take that kind of like intro class and
Yeah.
kinda see how it is. And
Yeah, and that intro class is really affordable, so it's kind of a nice excuse to go out there, make a weekend of it, and take a class and check it out.
yeah, and I've got some family I found out that like lives real close in the area.
Nice.
So like I may have a place to crash for a night or two. And
There you go.
yeah. Anyway, another time we'll find a chance. But
Yeah.
super super cool. I'm
Very
super
cool.
excited for this upcoming episode.
Thank you.
But so let's. What do you say? Should we move into my favorite part of the podcast and yours, Steve?
I say yes.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, super friends, time for Rebel Intelligence. I'm going to kick it off. So, if you know me, or if you listen to this podcast, you know that I'm super excited for Thor Ragnarok. We talked about it when they released the original trailer. Now, my expectations for every Marvel movie are super high. Like, I set the bar high because they've, except for a rare movie or two recently, and I'm talking like within the last 10 years or so, they continue to hit them out of the park. I mean, just one after another. And a sign of a good movie, in my opinion, is when the media is allowed to finally give their reactions. Because if a movie doesn't give you like media reactions, or you don't hear what the Siskel and Ebert types, the reporters that are going to give you their thumbs up approval or, their 5 stars. If you don't hear that until like the day the movie releases, in my opinion, that's always a bad sign because they never withhold that because they want to have a big push. Mm-hmm. Well, just over the weekend, we started hearing things. The NDA's been lifted. They're talking about Thor Ragnarok. Everyone is coming in saying this thing is excellent. Start to finish, it's got a lot of humor. It's got a lot of good action. It's got a really good payoff, and that just makes me so happy. I don't know about you guys, but like this is a movie I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I read through some of those reviews as well, and it was like everybody was just saying about humor. It's so funny. It's just a great time, start to finish, laugh out loud, all this stuff, and there were some unique shout outs as well. Jeff Goldblum got some love in a lot of the comments that I read as well, which not the biggest part, but I think he, like he does often, adds his kind of quirky take on any role he's given.
I mean, anything he's in, he's Jeff Goldblum, right?
He's Jeff Goldblum.
I mean,
he's Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so. No, it looks great. I'm pumped.
Ed, what about you? Are you a big comic book movie type of guy, or has that kind of run its course for you?
It's kind of run its course for me, but when I end up watching one, I usually enjoy myself, especially like you said, the Marvel ones. And it's easy to understand why you have such a high bar set is because they continue to raise the bar and kind of top themselves. I don't know much about comics outside of what I see in the movies. I was never a comic book reader, so I know nothing about Thor. So the movies, besides the Avengers films, that's the only time I knew anything about Thor. So I haven't seen any of his solo films, but so yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's getting some good buzz though.
Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt, but once again, it's Marvel. I mean, they would really have to do something horrible, I think, to get bad reviews at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, just having a substandard movie, a movie that's just like, they kind of phoned it in.
They're going to get a pass.
They're going to get a pass on that.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to trip over their own feet and do something entirely stupid in order for it to really, I think, impact them and get a lot of negative reviews. But
yeah,
like a Green Hornet quality or something.
Yeah, or
zing,
or pretty much anything in the DC universe right now.
Right. One thing I wanted to bring up, which this made me laugh, but also it was a sad commentary as to our current society. So the show Rick and Morty, which is an adult an Adult Swim show that has been, I think it's on its second or third season, and it is rave reviews. It's been, I think it aired originally back in 2013 or whatnot. Anyway, late night programming, Adult Swim, huge following. So McDonald's and some, probably just fresh out of college, PR guy was like, I got a great idea, Ronnie. We're going to do this thing. So Ronald McDonald, McDonald's, they put an offer out there that they any of the fans of this Rick and Morty show all over the country could come to their restaurants and claim what has been famed in this show as the main character's favorite sauce, which is a Szechuan sauce, And so, as you can imagine, this did not go according to plan because this fresh out of college guy didn't imagine how many people could be shows. Yeah, I'm loving it. Well, he was not loving it. I'm sure he's lost his job. So what basically happened was that thousands, and I'm talking thousands of people turned out for this thing. There were lines 3 hours long outside of McDonald's all over the country. There's one on this article that I read that there were 1,000 customers outside a McDonald's with police barricades chanting, "We want the sauce! We want the sauce!"
Oh my gosh.
Some of these McDonald's had like 10 posters and a few, like 20 packets total for a store. And literally pandemonium from condiment-lacking customers, descended into almost mob-like actions.
So I saw a video of a kid who's maybe no more than like 19, maybe 20. Like he jumped up on the counter and started screaming at the employees. And then like he pulled his shirt up over his head and like jumped down and like did kind of like a half circle spin on the floor and then like ran out the door. I heard that like cops were called in to like disperse crowds. And it's like, are we really going to be using, like tear gas next to break up crowds of like a web series in order?
We want condiments.
McDonald's? So I did see though that I think they posted on the McDonald's Facebook page that sometime in the winter they're going to try to bring the Szechuan sauce back to like help appease the crowds. And all I thought of is, first of all, this is awesomely ridiculous. Like,
right.
The insanity of it is a great, amazing thing. Second of all, I was like, this feels like the NES Mini Classic all over again.
Right.
That's right.
Hey, we only made 10 of them. I don't think anyone's gonna want these things.
Right.
They took a page on Nintendo's book, man.
Yeah, they did.
One of my favorite comments though on Twitter was from this guy Derek Ortiz, and he says, "It's sauce. Why is it so super limited? You're a global chain, and making enough sauce for one day is too hard." He's like, "Wendy's would have crushed this." Like, talk about your ultimate like slap in the face.
Hey, listen, you don't want to get Wendy's involved on social media, because whoever runs the social media, especially the Twitter for Wendy's, man, they are killer. Like they slap people down so fast and so hard, and anyone that goes up against them like ends up like deleting their Twitter account because Wendy's
goes into hiding
them. Oh. I'm in witness protection.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Wendy's took me on Twitter.
I take Dave Thomas off, and now his minions of redheaded stepchildren are after me.
Wendy's really mad at me right now, you guys. I gotta lay low.
It was just that one time, I promise. Anyway,
That is awesome. So Ed, what do you got for us today?
Well, I've got if you're a fan of Doctor Who and or pants, there's a really cool. I guess it's no secret now. They've announced that the next Doctor is going to be a female Doctor, which people were kind of calling for.
Right. Yep.
And Peter Capaldi is on his way out as the Doctor, and he found out that the next Doctor was going to be female because he goes to a place called Paul Smith's to get his clothes, which I assume is fancy because I'd never even heard of it. So
must be fancy.
It must be fancy. And he was in there. He's a regular customer. They all know him in there. And they said, "Oh, hey, we just got a call from the Doctor Who people, and they want a pair of your pants in a size 30. And he, in his infinite wisdom, said, "It must be a female Doctor." Which I guess wouldn't... I don't know. To me, a size...
There could be some skinny guys, right?
I mean, I can't believe that David Tennant wasn't a size 30.
Right. That kid was a beanpole.
I know, right? But that's how he found out that it was going to be a female doctor. Is that in his magical smart brain, he said size 30 must be for a girl.
That's so cool. And
I'm like a 32. What the?
I know that.
All right, go on.
Yeah. So Ed, you know this, and like the only way that information really makes any sense is if you kind of know how the show operates, right? Because when one doctor regenerates into the other, you know, they change, but they're in the same clothes,
Right.
Until then they kind of you know get their own kind of suit and don their own apparel for that kind of iteration of the doctor.
Yeah.
And so that's the only reason like that would, you know, make any sense to a guy like Peter Capaldi, because he's going to obviously know how that's all going to work out. But
right.
It's interesting that a pair of pants almost spoiled it, you know, for everyone a few days beforehand.
Yeah. And considering how close to the vest they were keeping it, I'm surprised that even the Doctor Who people were like, we're the Doctor Who people. You know, why wouldn't you just say,
Right.
this is Steve and I need a pair of Peter Capaldi's pants in
Ed, don't you mean close? Ed, don't you mean close to the pants? Not really close.
There you
to
go.
I just love that sentence. Why don't you just call in and say, "Hey, this is Steve. I need a pair of Dr. or Peter Capaldi's pants." Like that's just
creepy.
a reasonable request.
Right.
Take a number.
Right.
Oh, here we got another one of these
All I know is I'm going to
fans.
start shopping at Paul Smith's, man. Give me some 30 pants.
Too funny. Are you, Ed? Are you all caught up on Doctor Who?
We haven't watched the most recent season. We're waiting for it to go free on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
But there's been a couple times where it's been a slow Saturday night and I've almost pulled the trigger on the whole season. And Sarah's like, no, let's just wait. Let's wait. So I'm dying to watch it, but we haven't yet.
So we've got them all recorded on the DVR.
Okay.
And it was one of those things where like we had a bunch of stuff going on. And so they're still sitting there. And now I'm kind of to the point where it's like, well, I don't want to start them now because then I'll finish and then I'll still have to wait till Christmas. So I think we're going to try to get closer to Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And then pack them in all together. That way we can then watch the Christmas special on Christmas Day.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that idea.
Yeah. That's also because I've just, you know, I'm lazy and I got too much other stuff going on and I can't break away from that Destiny 2. So just
It's for Christmas.
yeah, it's for Christmas. It's a Christmas show.
Yeah.
So. You know, I've got one more thing, and then we'll see if Steve's got anything else. But so I was a huge X-Files fan when it originally came out. I started watching it with a buddy of mine. I introduced my family to it. I watched it all the way up until they did about the first movie, and then for some reason I just got involved in other stuff, and I got busy, and I just kind of fell away from it. And I know that they brought it back on Netflix, and they did the 10th season. And now they're currently filming an 11th season. And there's talks that maybe if it does well again on Netflix, maybe they'll take it back to Fox and go with a 12th season. But there's rumors, spoilers, if you will, that an old favorite character is coming back. The cigarette smoking man. I don't know if you guys ever watched X-Files.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But like my favorite episodes were anything that involved the cigarette smoking man because it meant that you were going to get kind of the conspiracy, the alien conspiracy, the shadowy government, you know, kind of angle. And so I always really, really enjoyed that. So he's coming back this season. And then they're also bringing back the whole, you know, Mulder and Scully had a baby plot point, and there's this kid that they pretty much forgot about. And I heard that and I went, yeah, okay. I mean, how many sitcoms have we seen where it's like, hey, you know what? We need to spice up this sitcom. It's been going for 10 seasons. Let's have them have a baby. And then we can forget the baby after 4 episodes.
And these are limited run seasons, aren't they? Like they're not.
Yeah, they're like 10 episodes each on Netflix.
They're not trying to fill 24 episodes like they used to have to. So
No, not at all.
wow.
So I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched the most recent. This is once again one of these things where it's like, how much time do I want to invest in this? Because if I really want to get caught up, I feel I'm at a point now where it's been so many years, I need to go back to the beginning and watch all the way through. And it's like, well, 10 seasons, I don't know.
A lot of watching.
That's a lot of watching of the X-Files. And I know my wife. I love her dearly, but she's not going to want to watch shows that are creepy or scary or dark right before bed.
Right.
Which is when we watch a lot of
many
TV.
of those were. Yeah, many of those were.
Yeah.
So, anyway, if you're into the X-Files and you have missed the cigarette smoking man, he's coming back, folks.
And I didn't watch many of the episodes, but they didn't kill him off. Obviously. I thought they did.
Not that I
some
recall.
reason. Okay.
And he didn't die of lung cancer? Odd.
I know, right?
Yeah, there was, as I recall, he didn't die, but the last time I remember seeing him, and I'm probably wrong because I didn't watch past that, but the last time I saw him, he was in that first movie that they did.
Oh, okay.
So, but that was like around season 6, season 7.
All right.
So, anyway, Steve, do you have anything else for Rebel Intelligence?
I do. There is a new DC trailer featuring the ensemble of the new Justice League movie that is soon to come. And have you guys seen this, by the way? Have you guys seen the new trailer?
I have.
It is really good. It kind of starts out by painting kind of a bleak post-Superman world, and kind of starts where the events of Batman v Superman leaves off. So you kind of see this dark, kind of heavy opening where Lois Lane's kind of having a flashback or a dream, and the world is kind of feeling the loss of Superman. There's violence and war and terrorism that's on the rise, and things just kind of feel darker. And there's a great quote by Bruce Wayne by I can't even say his name.
Ben Affleck.
He says,
Ben Affleck.
It's like garlic to my vampire. It's like water is like salt to my snail.
I tell you, when he comes on this show, you're going to regret it. I'm just saying.
Is that next week or is that 2 weeks from now? When is that? For our year anniversary. So anyway, but he says, divided we are not enough. The world needs Superman, which to hear Batman kind of admit, I guess, that he needs somebody else. So
Do you hear that, Josh? Do you hear that, Josh? Batman admits he needs Superman, that he's not enough. He has to have Superman.
That's right.
Just
he's not enough man.
Just saying to continue on a conversation we've had for like the last 30 years.
Yes. But anyway, so I thought it was a great trailer. I don't know, Spence, what did you think?
It was really good. Like, I felt like it was well put together. Like, it really kind of hit up a lot of the action sequences, which on a big movie like this, that's what you want. You want something's going to catch. I did like the little part right at the very beginning where Lois is having that dream, and you see her like with Clark Kent in the field, and he's like, I guess since you're wearing the ring, it means it's a yes. And then you realize like they flash back to like what really happened, and she's wearing the ring as she puts the dirt on his grave, which was at the end of Batman v Superman. And I went, hey, something kind of cool came out of that movie. That's awesome. But I liked that there was like the hint at Superman and the Batman line, but like I fully believe that we're going to see him in this movie in some form or another. But I'm glad that the marketing team is not like saying like, we need to push Superman, because
that's right.
That would totally destroy
him. Absolutely. So what's interesting about this though is that, Justice League is coming out after DC has said that it's trying to kind of scale back on some of its interconnectedness, the universe that, almost taking kind of a different road than the MCU has taken, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so we'll see, this is obviously very connected, and even this trailer ends with, a big, in stone letters, all in. And it kind of runs with this theme of like being united as a team. So we'll see. I don't know if this is, they're going to kind of test the waters to see if they can push this interconnected universe, or if they take the road less traveled, per Robert Frost.
I think they're taking the road less traveled, but that's just the optimist in me, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, and this film, just for those listening, this film will hit theaters on November 17th, so a little over a month away.
Yeah. So, like I've said, I'm going to go see this partially because I think that it could have the potential to be a good DC movie, partially because I think it has the potential to be a train wreck. And if it is, like...
Either way, he'll pay the $15.
That's right.
You just want the Wonder Twins to pop up.
That's right.
That's right.
Bring on them Wonder Twins. Yes. Well, good. Right. That's all you have, Steve? You tapped out for this week?
I am tapped out.
Ed, you good?
I'm good.
Awesome. I am good as well. Last week, Super Friends, we had a conversation about smartphones and, is the smartphone age kind of killing culture and what is it, doing to our children? And it had a great conversation. And the question we asked you was, at what age do you think you're going to allow your kids to have a smartphone, have a cell phone, or at what age did you? Because obviously some of you are probably past that point. Ed, right. What age would you let your kiddies have a smartphone?
I don't know, 12?
12. You're gonna now is that cat years or is that human years?
I don't know. I guess my brother. We don't have any kids, so my brother. I think they got his daughter a smartphone for her birthday, and she just turned. I want to say like 13 or 14, and that seemed old to me. And maybe that's just because I see kids running around with their parents' old smartphones all the time now.
Sure.
Right. I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm a horrible person to ask that. I have no tolerance. No, that's not the word. I have no experience.
Ed Placencia is not intolerant. He is.
I have no experience.
Just for the record, let the record show.
I'm going to say, I don't know, 7th grade, however old that is.
7th grade.
Okay. That's probably 13.
Okay. Middle of junior high, right about there. Okay.
Yeah. No wrong answer, by the way. No wrong answer.
Yeah, not at all. I think, Steve, you said 12 because you're kind of in that realm right now with Carter.
Yeah.
And
I'm getting there, 12 or 13.
I said maybe 16, but that's just me trying to, have my children have a childhood and not, become adults so fast. But I'm sure that'll change. Let's go to the emails where you can reach us at fortofnerd@gmail.com. The first one says, the wife and I plan on getting our son a phone in 2 years when he begins middle school. He will no longer be in an after-school program and will probably start walking home. Same goes for our daughter when she starts middle school, but she is in kindergarten right now, so we have time. Side note, my son attended an assembly at my school presented by Google. It was awesome until the end. When the presentation was over, my son ran to my office and yelled, "The presenter says you have to buy me a phone before I start 5th grade."
Son of a gun.
Says the presenter said he was joking and didn't think before he said it. I thanked him for starting a frenzy and for the potential parent phone calls, which I did receive several.
Wow.
By the way, this person, I believe, is an assistant principal. Matter of fact.
And who is this? Who is this?
Well, he says, thanks for putting on a solid show. You two have great positive chemistry. This is from our friend Chowfie.
Oh, nice.
Nice. That Chowfie. Thank you, Chow.
Chowfie, thank you very much. Steve, an old friend of ours from back in the dark ages, Eric Salway. Says
who works for? He's a police officer, by the way. So this guy's gonna know. He does these assemblies,
right? He says
and tases children.
He says, "What's up, bros? I've answered a few of your questions, but mainly just a faithful listener. However, I figured I might have some input on the cell phone topic. First of all, let me say I really enjoy your show. Definitely don't consider myself a nerd or know much about pop culture, but I enjoy learning new things from you guys and find your podcast refreshing and light-hearted enough that I look forward to it every week. Thanks, Eric. That's awesome,
man, Eric." The check is in the mail, too.
Yes.
You go broke on this episode, Spence.
I'm telling you.
Dang it.
Look at this. I got it all lined up. Everything's turning up, Spencer.
Right.
He says, anyway, enough fanboy gushing, which I also learned is not cool thanks to your Comic-Con show. Says, so I have 4 kids, with the oldest being 14 and the youngest 5. We decided to give our 14-year-old an iPhone when he turned 12. We felt like it was an old enough age for him to be responsible and to take care of these ridiculously expensive devices. We also started having him stay home and babysit, which in homes like ours have no landline anymore. So we had to have a phone there for him anyway, and all his friends communicate through text message. I've told the rest of our kids that they will get a phone on their 12th birthday if they can show us they are trustworthy. We make him leave the phone upstairs at night and charge it, and we put parental restrictions in regards to the internet, but let's face it, he's a 14-year-old boy that knows enough about technology. I'm sure he could find a way past our parental restrictions and see whatever he wants. We do random phone checks and check his history, and thus far, everything has been fine. Nice. Probably the best thing about having a kid having a cell phone is that they will do anything not to have it taken away as a punishment. We made it very clear if the grades go down or if he does something stupid, the cell phone is the first thing to go. I don't think there's anything more motivating to teenagers right now than being able to keep in contact with their buddies. Anyway, sorry for the long answer. Teenagers are rough and will push you in more ways than I ever thought imaginable. Keep up the great work, and it's great hearing from you two each week. Much love, Eric Salway.
Oh man, I love Eric Sal. He's such a good guy. So that was chocked full with good information.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Ed, you better be taking some notes, brother, man. When you get kids, wow, that's
Or when your cats want a cell phone.
Exactly.
I mean, just whatever.
right, which is going to happen. I mean, they sell water in bottles now. I don't know if you guys have heard. Crazier things have happened. No, I love the fact that, I've always, we've always been taught, Spencer, you and I, that, you teach people correct principles and let them govern themselves. And while, you can do that to an extent, obviously you have to be age appropriate with that principle. But I think that's a great principle that Eric's trying to enact in his family, and also being able to give them something that you can then take away. I've been like, how do we punish them, Carrie? We've given them nothing. We have nothing to take away. No. Here's $1. Give me that back.
Give me those shoes. You will walk in the snow barefoot.
Oh, I have been tempted before, believe you me. Eric, thank you. That was a very thoughtful response, and one that I think might even give me some how-to in my current situation. So thank you.
Nice. All right, moving on. Peter Christensen. Dear nerds, rapid fire, +1 for Flight of the Navigator remake. Compliance. Spencer, you and Lou Ferrigno look like you're posing for prom photos. I know it's a weird photo. We were shaking hands, and he was also like trying to give me like the fist, thing, but like the way it looks, yeah, we do look.
And
like
you have a corsage on your left lapel.
That's right.
Don't tell him. He says, Steve, Anthony Hopkins has geek cred. He played Odin in the Thor movies.
Oh, true that, brother.
Right? He says, I also envy a nice bald head. I shaved my head in college and discovered I have ridges in my skull. My head looks like a topographical map. So Steve, maybe you guys would be Klingon brothers together when you shave your heads.
What is that, Peter? The Sea of Tranquility? That's my medulla oblongata.
He says, my experience with kids and phones. We gave our oldest phone a phone at 10 years old. We gave our oldest a phone at 10 years old when she went to middle school. We did it purposely so she could call or text in case of emergencies or change plans. We haven't let her sign up for any social media, but she spends an awfully lot of time on that YouTube. Almost as much time as I spent watching crappy cartoon reruns when I was her age. I feel like she's safe, but it's a time waster. I feel like it's been a net plus because she's no worse off than I was, and she knows a lot of cool stuff about science and culture that she has seen on YouTube. My 9-year-old has the Gizmo Pal, which is that kind of phone watch that only calls the 4 numbers that we talked about Josh giving his son.
Yeah.
He says, we loved it, but she didn't wear it, so we're selling it.
Oh, wow.
Maybe I'll be a buyer.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's flip over to...
Thank you, Peter, by the way.
Facebook. Yes, thank you, Peter. Caleb Albert says, obviously I'm not a parent yet. My wife and I have talked about this in depth. What we plan on doing is getting a phone for our kid when they start going to friends' houses, but that will be a limited use phone that is only used for either calling my wife or myself, and just so they always have a form of communication with them. But as for a cell phone of their own, I think around junior high age is okay for a kid to have a phone for simple purposes like calling or texting, then give them more and more privileges as they grow and mature. For example, if they become dependent on their phones, I'll probably cut back on what their phones can do. But if they can manage their time well, then they'll get more features unlocked on their phone. But with that, it's a case-by-case scenario. One kid may end up having more features unlocked than their siblings. Boy, that's going to backfire quickly. But
I was going to say, that seems like a video game. Like, I beat the boss. I got this unlocked.
Right. But I mean, I do get where he's coming from. He says, that's just the plan. What I do, and obviously with any parent, you need to play it by ear and do what you think's right for your kid. Not every system works for every kid. Growing up, I got a phone younger than either of my brothers, other than calling, texting, music, and podcasts during the day and checking out the news of Marvel and DC before bed. I rarely use my phone, but my brothers are almost always on their phones doing something. It's always dependent on the person. He says, looking forward to the episode, and I hope to hear your thoughts on the Star Wars trailer and the Justice League. So,
Dang it! I like that about Caleb's comment about kind of the burn phone. Like, there's just one phone. Like, when you go to friends, you can take the phone, and if the feds find you out, burn.
Man, what are you, Avon Barksdale? I mean, come on. Burner phones.
Oh,
yeah. You're going to start your meth empire again, Steve, after last week? We talked about this.
right,
Don't do it, man. Don't do it. Exactly. Going over to the Twitters. Let's see what the twits have to say. No, not the twits. The Twitters.
Our subscribership just went down.
We lost everyone, huh? Nathan Thomas at Voiced by Nathan says, maybe never. Maybe an Apple Watch with cell service and say, if you have an emergency, call me. Until then, buy their own. Hard to say.
Ooh, I like that.
And then
hard line.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, he's going old school. I like it. Trash Turkey at Trash Turkey says, I didn't have a phone growing up either, but I did have a sweet translucent blue pager. It got washed with my jeans.
Nice.
He says
the pager.
He says though, I'd like to hold out until my kids are 14 to 16 to get cell phones, but I could see getting something that's just made for emergency calls sooner.
Would it be kind of a D move though to get like your kids like a flip phone and be like, "Good luck, son"? Like, are they gonna get like the crap beat out of them? Like, be like, "Hey, nice clamshell," bam! You know, like after school in the parking lot. I don't know. Like, am I setting them up for failure?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead and do that, Steve. Let me know how it works out.
Here's a Nokia 5250.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carter. You're not going to make it. It's been a good run. Well, Super Friends, thank you so much for answering our question. We always love interacting with all of you. And this last week's question, I think, was a good one because there was a lot of interaction, a lot of conversation, and everyone pretty much came in with like what they're going to do or have done and why, and some like reasons to back it up, which I think that's awesome. You know, a good way to have a conversation, not just this and for no reason whatsoever.
I'd love to see, though, how many of those that don't have children then totally change and come like 3 years earlier after they have kids.
Right.
It'll happen. I'm sure
their kids will find like this email and so.
Well,
very cool. Thank you.
Steve,
you for coming.
we have our super friends. They're out there. They come and join us every week, but we always ask our super friends to help us continue to grow the Fortress of Nerditude and to find us more super friends. How can they do that?
They can rate us on iTunes so the Fortress of Nerditude isn't as hard to find as Spencer Stapleton in the front row of Hamilton.
Nice.
Ah, look at that.
Nice.
Good.
There you go.
I like that.
Breed, I hope you're listening.
No.
She'll be in the second row. She got herself a front row. She's not even sitting with
You're right. Yeah, she'll hear this, but about like 6 months after we go see Hamilton.
Right.
So, love you. This month, we always do the movie club, right? And usually Brita joins us. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it this month with us. But we have Ed here. And this couldn't be more exciting for me because we decided that we wanted to do something a little different. Instead of trying to go out and see a movie, we were like, let's bring this back. Let's watch something that you can see on Netflix. And immediately I was like, you know what? Let's make this light. Let's make this fun. Let's pick the new Jerry Seinfeld comedy special on Netflix, Jerry Before Seinfeld. And I think there's no one better to have on right now than Ed, because I know Ed is a lover of comedy.
Yes, definitely.
So, Steve, you've seen this. I know Ed's seen this. Let me get your just quick first hit impressions of this. What did you think of this, Steve?
I loved it. I thought it was an origin story. I thought it was light, and it was a nice balance between a little storytelling, a little kind of a peek into Seinfeld's growing up and kind of where he came from and how he came to be, and then also just straight stand up from the actual parts where he was telling jokes. So I thought it was a nice balance, and it was just smooth and easy and funny, and it was pure Seinfeld, which I'm a huge fan.
What about you, Ed?
Yeah, at first I was a little taken back because a few years ago, when he said that he was getting rid of all of his old material and he's going to start from scratch and he's leaving his old standards behind, and he kind of made a big deal about that's all being retired. So I was a little surprised to hear a lot of that material in this, but at the same time, that's what this is about, and it's about his old material and how he got started. And once I kind of came to terms with this is what it is, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and the fact that he can take so much of his old material and it still works today, and they show a lot of clips of him when he was just getting started, and he had it down back then. He had found his voice, and that's a pretty rare thing for a comic to do so early on, and I was just impressed that he had found his voice and was smart enough to stick with it. And, Seinfeld back when he first got started back in the 80s is still Seinfeld today. And that's just a testament to what he does and how good it is.
The amount of polish that I think he had, even back like in the late 70s, as he was like developing his material, and trying to get on at the comic strip, and going up on open mic nights. Like it just was shocking to me, because I've seen a bunch of comedians on like open mic nights, and it's rough.
Yeah.
It's like they've got a couple good laughs, but they don't have a solid 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
And it seemed like Jerry had that from the beginning.
Yeah. And a lot of times, and it's just through no fault of anyone, if you're a comedy fan and you listen to a lot of comedy, when you get started, you sound like who you've been listening to. So,
Yes.
a lot of comics, you'll be like, oh, that guy's been listening to Dane Cook a lot. And Seinfeld sounds like Seinfeld.
Yeah. Now, I would probably say, like, if you went back and you listened to, like, at the very, very, very beginning, he probably sounded like Lenny Bruce, Cosby,
right. Robert Klein.
Robert Klein. Yeah, these guys that he looked up to. But there becomes a point, though, I think really early on, where you don't hear that anymore. It's just Jerry.
Yeah.
I love, and I've seen some other documentaries and other comics, and Joan Rivers one comes to mind. But it's always interesting that this isn't just somebody that's funny that just kind of gets up there and like makes jokes. Maybe some comics are like that, but the really, really good comics. I mean, Jerry, and I remember, Ed, the special where he kind of retired his jokes. It started out with like a funeral scene, and there were a bunch of other comics, and he had a casket, and all the jokes were in there. And I think Gary Shandling or something like that was like, "Can I have this?" Or like was trying to steal a joke. Yeah. He's like, "Get out of here, just take it." But it's interesting that it really is a craft that they've honed over a number of years. And there's a scene in this special where he's sitting on this sidewalk in Central Park or wherever, and he's got all of his jokes lined up, and it goes all the way down way behind him. And I remember there was a special when Joan Rivers died, when she goes through this place in her house where there's this like huge, it almost looks like the Dewey Decimal System, this huge card catalog of all these jokes she's written over the years. And it's like, this is not just somebody who's funny and gets up and tells jokes. This is somebody who has honed their craft and written these things and rewritten and tried and retried because it didn't work and the timing was off. I mean, over the course of a lifetime, which is amazing to me.
So there's this interesting documentary in 2002 called Comedian that Ed and I were talking about a couple days ago, and he's like, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "I think so." And I actually rewatched it, and I had seen it before, where it kind of follows Jerry after he retired all his old bits, because that special is called "I'm Telling You for the Last Time," which is one of my favorite comedy albums. I just love and adore that album, because it's just all his greatest stuff, and it's full on Jerry Seinfeld at the height of everything, and he's just there's nothing that misses. Every joke's a killer, right? He's slaying the crowd. Love that. But in this documentary Comedian, there's this moment where he's talking about trying to like build new material, and you kind of see him going through the clubs and like, trying to just, drop in somewhere at the end of the night and get up and work on some material and do this. And then there was also an audio album he did where he was talking, and I'm going to blank this now, but he was talking with someone. He was talking about like how you craft a joke, and something that stuck with me for years, that he says, if you can tell a joke and it's funny in 7 words, can you get it down to 5 words and is it still funny? And the idea is that like, if this is, like this story's really funny, like how can you condense it? How can you make it the parts that aren't as funny and rework them a little bit, or kind of pull them out and find a way to like pack the funny in even tighter, so then you can get to your next bit, and so you can get to the next, punchline, or, your add-on that you're going to hit. And so like, as I was watching that Comedian documentary, like I was watching him do that. And it's interesting because we saw this in the Jerry Before Seinfeld. Like you kind of see him when he's young going up and doing these jokes and talking about these jokes and trying to find a way to make them funnier. I don't like, I know a lot of funny people, and I don't know a lot of funny people though that would take. No, Steve, not you. Stop waiting.
Shut up.
But like,
I quit.
I don't know a lot of funny people that like would say like, "Hey, I've got this really funny story about like my dad," and they'll tell you that funny story, and the whole room will laugh. But then they don't say, "Now, how can I take that funny story about my dad and find a way to like compress it and make it funnier without necessarily like changing the story entirely?" Right?
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of people that do that, but the people that do that are famous comedians that have specials and shows on Netflix and all that.
Well, and I think what's interesting that you that comment is that there is a science. There is a you said you kind of started to reverse engineer when you were watching. You're like, oh, I see what he's doing. I see how he's and there's kind of like a cadence of there's a height to a joke, and then there's kind of a lull and another height, and then the really funny comedians that I appreciate and that I love, will always bring back other jokes that they've told at other parts, and that's always great when they can, and then they can end on that high kind of fevered pitch when they bring it all together in some kind of climax of a joke. I love it, and I've always loved Seinfeld. I remember when I was younger, I actually got a book, and I don't remember what the title was, but it was Seinfeld, and it was a black cover, and it was kind of a portrait of him. Anyway,
Sign language.
Sign language, yes.
Yes.
Great book. And what I thought was so amazing about this, and I'd listened to comedy. I mean, we had the albums of Bill Cosby and of Adam Sandler when I was a little bit older. But this book, I found myself like even reading his material was funny, and the timing was funny. So he was able to not only deliver it, but also to write it. And it was still as funny as if I was listening to him tell it on stage. Yeah. Which I thought was really kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. I've always really appreciated about him his love for just comedy and how it works and the craft of it. And in this documentary, he talks about how he was at the comic strip and they would perform for free. And they're performing simply because they had to perform. They loved to do it. And that says a lot because it's a lot of hard work, and not a lot of people would do their job for free. Right. And it's just one of those, a testament to, are you doing what you love to do? Would you do what you do for free if you had the chance? And not a lot of people can say yes. And it's just, his love for it hasn't waned to this day. And it's just a testament to, if you can do what you love to do or figure out how to do it, you're onto something.
Right.
Yeah. That's beautiful, isn't it?
I heard I heard Jerry say once that like he was sitting somewhere in New York and he saw these construction workers that were coming back from lunch. And he was like, I'm looking at these guys and I'm realizing they don't want to be coming back after lunch. Like they'd rather go home and do something else. Is like, but they're doing what they need to do because they need to just put in the hours because this is their job. And so they're doing that. And he's like, that's how I need to treat my comedy. Like I shouldn't just kind of do it halfway. Like I should look at this as my job and I should put in 8 hours a day and work on my material and, constantly get up on stage and constantly, go out there and I'm going to bomb and I'm not going to bomb, things aren't going to work. Things will. He's like, but if I do that and I craft and I hone, eventually, my time, my set is going to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon, I'll go from 5 minutes to 20 to, an hour.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting, because I mean, who wants to, put in that kind of time if it's not something you're going to see a payoff for? You have to love it. You have to have a passion.
Yeah.
One other thing, and this is a small side note, not really about the show that we'll talk about in a second, but what I think is interesting as well is there are a lot of funny people in Hollywood or whatever, but there are not a lot of funny people that can also do stand-up comedy. For instance, and this is a very, very clear example, you have Jerry Seinfeld and you have Michael Richards. Both were on Seinfeld. Both were extremely funny.
Right.
Jerry Seinfeld obviously had his roots in stand-up comedy. I think we all saw, what was it, back in 2006 after 2009, I think it was, when Michael Richards went to the infamous comedy club, the Laugh Factory, I think, and there was somebody who started to kind of heckle him, and then he lost it on stage and started to slur expletives and all the rest. And it's like, some people can be funny on TV, some people can be funny in movies, some people can be funny in real life, but it takes a certain person to be funny on stage when it's just you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and he in that comedian documentary you mentioned, Spencer, he and Colin Quinn are talking about, if you're famous, you'll get the first few minutes of grace. And Sarah and I saw Chris Kattan in Philadelphia perform stand-up, and for the first 5 minutes or so, everyone kind of laughed at what he was saying, and then you realized, oh, this guy, he's not a stand-up comic, and it was
it awkward?
It was so awkward that after about a week later, the club emailed everyone that went and said, we're going to give you a free show because it was such a horrible show.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt really bad because Sarah grew up loving Chris Kattan and just to kind of like
SNL, Night at the Roxbury.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just to kind of see her like, oh no, he's not good at this thing.
He's not that funny.
Yeah. So it was really
Or he's not that good at that.
Yeah.
Right? Well, he was on Dancing with the Stars recently, and he wasn't.
Was he really?
You'd think he'd be personable and effervescent. He was like, oh. So that's interesting.
The interesting thing is, and I've heard this somewhere else, but as I watched the documentary Comedian, they also in that kind of follow like an up and coming comedian. His name is Orny Adams, and like it seemed like his focus, or at least the way he was portrayed in the documentary, was like his focus was like on like making it and trying to like get the money and like get the fame and like he's like I got it in this paper and I'm on the front page and like I get that, like that's exciting, but like that was his focus. And yeah, you talked about, Colin Quinn talking with Jerry Seinfeld, and there were some others saying like, you get up there for the love of it, you just do it. And if you do it long enough and you do it for the love of it, eventually, you're going to hone your craft and you're going to get really good and the money's going to come.
Right.
Now, of course, hearing this from Jerry Seinfeld, who probably had a Brinks truck backed up to his house, to do this latest Netflix special, you kind of hear that and you go, yeah, okay, he's got money. But if you pull aside and you don't listen, you don't look at who's saying it, think about that. If someone just says like, listen, if you do what you love long enough and hard enough, eventually it's all going to come together and you're going to make money. That's sound quality advice, right? You put in your time in. And I've looked up Orny Adams and seen, if he's kind of still doing things, and he's probably had, I'd say, some moderate success. I mean, he was on a TV show on MTV, and he's had some specials, and he's had a lot of appearances on like David Letterman on the Late Show and on the Tonight Show on and off, and he's Comedy Central had some specials. Like, I think he's gotten to probably a level now in his career where he's I don't know, at least has more opportunities than he did when the documentary was filmed. But I just kept thinking the whole time, I was like, man, this guy's priorities aren't where they need to be. He's too focused on, getting somewhere else and not focused on where he's at. And, I think that's a easy human mistake to make for anyone. But in comedy, it's like, you can't look at the next level. You can't look at the next echelon. You got to kill it and slay where you're at. Right.
And I forget the guy's name. He was a big comedy manager, and in the
George Shapiro.
No, the tall blonde guy, and he sits Orny down and says,
Barry something. What's his name?
And says, Orny, the best advice. Stephen Wright, the comedian, doesn't talk about his accolades and what he's achieved. He goes out there, he does an amazing show, and he leaves the stage, and people love him, because he just leaves his work on the stage, and that's what people judge him by.
And I think he even says, like, when Stephen Wright takes the stage, he says, thank you. And when he finishes, he says, thank you, which was really interesting, because at the end of that Comedian documentary and at the end of Jerry Before Seinfeld, when he finishes at the end of the night, Jerry just says, thank you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so perfect.
Yeah, and I think as successful as he's been, he still seems, and maybe it's just the persona, maybe it's not, but he still seems fairly approachable. Seems like he hasn't forgotten where he came from. I mean, he was sitting down as part of the special with a few of the comedians that surely have not received the accolades and the fame that Seinfeld has. He's just sitting there shooting the stuff with them, And you see this in his web series, getting comedians in cars getting coffee.
Right.
That he's just very down to earth, and and he finds humor in a lot of just the everyday thing, very observational humor, and I love his kind of everyday, everyman kind of humor.
So let me ask you that: why do you think that works? Because I'm going to say that Jerry Seinfeld's probably one of the most beloved comedians of our generation. Like, I think he's got a era. Why do you think his observational comedy works so well?
I'll just say I think that his material is just it's so universal. It's not like politically charged or racially charged or sexually charged or whatever. It's just very palatable for a lot of people. And I noticed as well, and I listen to a lot of different comics. He's really clean, but he's not known as like a clean comedian. But I probably counted maybe 2 swear words in his whole set of that whole 1 hour show. So I think that he's beloved because, of course, Seinfeld was hugely successful. But I think his comedy is just his material is just very approachable.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't feel like you don't have to be in his culture to get his comedy. You don't have to be, I don't understand this because, I'm Hispanic people would understand what they're talking about, but I don't have that.
Right.
Or these aren't New York jokes and you have to be in New York to get them.
Exactly.
It's anyone, it's Cookie Crisp and it's everything that everyone has encountered in their lives, and like Steve said, it's just relatable to everyone. And it's not, you're not going to get this part because you haven't had this experience in your life. This is just everyone has dealt with that.
Yeah. Which I love that Cookie Crisp bit, by the way. That was awesome. Somebody has to go and ruin it for everybody.
So let me ask you this: you guys watched watched the special Jerry before Seinfeld. Was there anything that really like stood out to you about like his set, or maybe like his work ethic as he was growing up that like you see in yourself? Like, is there something like you say like, oh, like I do this, but like in a different aspect of your life? What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, it was very interesting especially when they would show a lot of the old comedy books or albums or things he had as a kid, how many of them I had. It was kind of cool to see, oh man, I had that too. And I had that. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me, it wasn't even a funny it was a funny line, but it wasn't necessarily a quote unquote joke. But when he talked about who a comedian or a lot of comedians, who they are as people, you assume they're the, when they're off the stage, they're the extroverted, crazy class clown. And he said, I can talk to all of you, meaning he can get in front of a crowd, but I can't talk to any of you. And I'm a lot like that. I'll talk in front of a crowd, any time of day, but when it becomes one-on-one, if it's at a party, I'll hang in the back and I'll just sit and people watch. And I'd much rather I'm more comfortable talking to a bunch of people than I am in a room full of strangers and I have to force a conversation with someone. I'll do it, but it's a little work for me.
I love that about you, Ed, because I feel mostly the same way, except for one difference. And that's like, I can get up and talk in front of a whole bunch of people. I haven't told this story yet, but when I went to the Salt Lake Comic-Con, and I told this to Steve, but now I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. When I went to the Salt Lake Comic-Con, was 2 weekends ago with my wife, we were sitting for a panel with Dick Van Dyke. And they had a little bit of time beforehand, and the MC's trying to get like the crowd kind of pumped up. He's like, let's do a 5-minute dance party. He's like, okay. And they have this big camera on this boom mic, and on this big boom, not a boom mic, but they had a boom mic, I guess, but big camera on a boom. And they're kind of like going over to this one little section. People are just kind of standing up and just kind of moving a little bit and not really doing much. And he's like, okay, let's go over here. And he's like running over here, and he's like, okay. And they kind of get up and they stand up, and he's like, okay, let's come back here. Now they come back to my section. And this is where like the switch inside of my head's like, I'm on now.
Yeah.
Like this, it just takes over, and like, I can't help myself. I was like, I'm going to make a fool of myself. So I get up and I stand up on my chair and I start like gyrating my body. Like I'm trying to sell something that no one wants. No one wants it. And this MC sees me, goes, yeah, you. And he starts pointing. He's like, come up here. So like, he had me come up to like where the two big kind of crossings between all these seats kind of like intersect, and he's like, go. And so I just like start dancing. I'm shaking my booty and I'm moving around, and I'm like, I look like the crazy white fat guy that's just like going nuts at a ball game that like happens to get caught on camera,
right?
Because he didn't know it. but like I was doing that, and like the MC is like kind of doing like the little, chest shimmy, 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 shake, and we're doing that back and forth, and I'm thinking the whole time like, I'm not a good dancer. What am I doing? But like it's that performer inside of me that like it just that switch flips, and it's like I got to do something. I got to get the crowd going, and everyone starts standing up and cheering and going nuts. And he's like, "That's awesome!" And then like that ended that like little 5-minute dance party. And I went to sit back down, and my wife, of course, is shaking her head, and I just look at her and said, I don't have a filter. I don't get embarrassed by this kind of stuff. Like,
yeah.
So eventually that footage is going to end up somewhere online. I apologize to everyone, but then again, at the same time, I really don't.
We'd like to inaugurate you as president of the United. Wait,
we have this footage.
You have to see this.
So like, I'm like you like that. Like I can talk to a whole bunch of people, but the only other difference is like when I have to talk to people one-on-one, like I really just try to say, okay, I don't know this person. Let me try to, ask some probing questions and, build a kind of a common foundation of, oh, he likes NASCAR. I know Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a person. Let's go from there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I'll just kind of build up, and then eventually, if there's not like a real conversation there, like instead of trying to manufacture conversation, then I kind of default into like telling a funny story or a humorous thing that happened to me. And then like I usually like, try to bring in another person or two. And then pretty soon I've got like a little bit of a crowd around me, and it's back to being the performer and, like being on stage. So basically what I'm saying is I'm just a jack-a that like can't not be on at all times. Steve knows this is true, right?
Well, I mean, the reason that Spencer and I are friends, or that we're really kind of from the same mold, I recall, Spencer, as you're telling that story, that there was a time when I was a much younger man with more hair. In fact, my mother invited me to go to this concert of like these like 60s and 70s stars, like in Rosemont, where Hulk used to wrestle. And because her girlfriend got sick or something like that, she said, "Come with me." So I was in like junior high, and this is like John Denver was playing there, and like some of the like the Living Beach Boys, and like,
wow.
And so there was a scene where the Shirelles, who, if you know the Shirelles, hey, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Anyway, and so the Shirelles are on stage, and I'm like, 14, 13 maybe, and they're like, "We want to see what Chicago's got to offer, so why don't you guys come on, any good-looking guys, come on down." And she's like, "I dare you to go." I'm like, "Done." And I'm like, we were like way, like nosebleed, way in the back of the Rosemont Horizon. I like run all the way down. Everybody is already on stage by the time I get there. So I get up on stage. I'm the last person in line, and there are all these middle-aged men, pot bellies, ball, whatever. They get to me. She's like, "Honey, I got shoes older than you. What you got?" And so I could do little Michael Jackson moonwalk through the splits and get down. And she's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna take you on tour, put you in a doggy bag." Anyway, but yeah. So anytime there's an open mic, an open stage, like look out, because I'm coming running. What I thought though about this, about going back to the special, is that. Not that it relates to me, but I thought was a really interesting thing was, and it was almost a little throwaway scene where he seemed to be like taking questions from the audience or something. It was only a short section. It wasn't, it didn't really get a lot of play. But somebody asks about the books that are on. There's like a piano or a bookshelf, and there's some books. And he's like, "Well, the books aren't real." He's like, "I don't live here,
Right.
But there are these two bookends, and he talks about that the bookends are his. And there's the one scene where Jor-El is putting Superman into the rocket, and then the other bookend is when he's found in a Kansas cornfield. And what I thought was really interesting is right then, and it was almost a throwaway phase, but he's in the middle of the story, and he says something about how his parents are both orphans.
Yeah.
And you almost kind of missed it, and I heard it, and I'm like, wait, and I rewound it, and I heheard it again. I'm like, I wonder if he was joking. So I thought it was really kind of poignant to say like he connected with Superman
because he's an orphan
who was also an orphan, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought it was kind of a cool thing that while this special wasn't some in-depth, hard-hitting documentary, lightning in a bottle, who is Jerry Seinfeld and what makes him tick, that was just a little kind of a peek behind the curtain as to who he was. And I think that that all comics, all good comedians have taken this comedy from some place of pain or of some event in their life or events in their life. And usually a lot of them come from, hard backgrounds, hard childhoods and whatnot. And just kind of a neat little glimpse into maybe what makes Jerry Seinfeld who he is and probably what makes his comedy so good. So
that's good.
So when I was watching that scene, I kept thinking, I really want those bookends.
They were pretty cool.
Like in my mind, I'm like, those are really freaking cool.
Gotta save up for Hamilton.
Yes, I know. So here's something you said, Steve, that like that I heard someone else say, like Leslie Jones. If you know her, she's on SNL. She's a comedian. I think she's hysterical. I love Leslie Jones, but at first I didn't know how I felt about her, just because it took me a little bit to kind of figure out like what kind of her angle is, because every comedian has some sort of an angle. Like they're coming from a place of, like my humor's from my pain, or my humor's from like, funny situations that have, happened to me, or like Jerry Seinfeld, like situational things, like things I've seen. But like you were mentioning, Steve, with like Jerry Seinfeld, when he has that moment where he says, both my parents were orphans and Superman's an orphan. And he's got this connection there. And I remembered something that Leslie Jones, she was interviewed somewhere, and I'm not going to remember where, but she was talking about like when she was first trying to get up on stage and first trying to tell jokes. And she's like, all my jokes were flat. Nothing was like really that funny. And someone pulled her aside and like, listen, you're young. You haven't worked a job yet. You haven't lost jobs yet. You haven't fallen in love. You haven't fallen out of love. You haven't had life experiences. You need to go do that. Then you need to come back and then write your jokes from your real world experiences. And like that idea has stuck with me, because I think you look at Jerry Seinfeld, right? And you see this in this special, like all of his jokes come from life experiences. Like he tells that his first joke, right? The whole, why do they use the left, left out and leftovers, and why is this two left feet, always back, left-handed compliment. And I started looking at it. I'm like, Jerry's left-handed, isn't he? Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is literally coming from a place where probably his whole life, and I get this because I'm right-handed, but my wife is left-handed. So like when we go to a restaurant, like my wife has to sit on a certain side of me. Otherwise, like we're constantly banging elbows, and I feel like we're cramped in together. And so I realized like he's gone his whole life, making these little observations about, like what he has to do as a left-handed person, and probably hearing all these things. And that's where that joke came from. So like over a lifetime of experiences up to that point, that's where that joke comes from. Yeah. If that wasn't the case and he's just trying to make a left-handed joke and he's not left-handed, is it going to be funny? Probably. But is it going to be as funny as it possibly could? No, because he's not going to have that background and that wealth of knowledge to pull from.
Yeah, and the subtlety. Yeah.
And so
the color. Yeah.
So I think that's really...
Not to say that kids can't be funny.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. So let me ask you this. If you look at your own life, do you think... how to put this? Okay, I'm going to make an assumption here. I'm going to assume that all three of us are probably guys that at some point have thought, I could probably get on stage and put together a solid 5 minutes, and I could tell jokes. Am I wrong in that assumption?
No.
Okay, good.
Absolutely not.
Good, because I think that all the time. I'm like, I need to put together a 5 minutes and do an open mic night and just see what happens. So my question to you is, like, do you see things in your past that you've experienced that you go, man, that was painful at that time, but like now I see humor in things that I couldn't see at that moment that would make for good material?
Absolutely. And I think mine are probably more story-based like yours are, but I definitely have thought about that long and hard, and I mean, most of them involve you, Stapleton.
Well, that's true.
But yeah, no, I definitely, but again, mine are more just kind of different stories of foolish things I've done, and it's usually self-deprecating. That's kind of my humor, is the self-deprecating kind. And there's a lot of material. There's a lot of material there.
Have you done an open mic, Steve?
No, I never have, but I would say most of my life has been kind of an open mic. I mean, it's this is kind of an open mic, right?
Right. Yeah. See, I've never done an open mic. However, like I'm kind of the how to put this. I'm really not trying to like toot my own horn here, but like I'm kind of the guy like with my coworkers that like we'll get going and we'll be talking about something and like something kind of funny will happen and I find a way to like, one up it and, try to top it and make everyone laugh. And like, I realized like I'm probably my happiest when I have people laughing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's why I think sometimes like I definitely like try things that do not succeed and miss the mark far wide. And I kind of get that, ooh, no. And I'm like, I was just trying to make people laugh. And I thought maybe it was going to be funny. And in my head, it sounded a certain way. And, there's a line and I barreled through that line and kept going. And yeah. So like, just goofy, weird stuff. Like today, like for instance, today at work, we were talking about the whole idea, like these people who think the earth is flat. And we're just kind of like laughing, about some of the ways that people try to prove this thing on YouTube, especially because that's, typically where people want to go to prove this type of, science-based evidence. And so we started laughing, and I was like, man, what we should do is we should create some sort of crazy conspiracy theory to put up videos on YouTube and, get a whole bunch of hits so we can, make some ad revenue money. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know, man, but let's have like some sort of rock conspiracy where we can't have rocks like mixing with other rocks, and if rocks have these souls, and if you build your home and you've got, a foundation that's built with, concrete, you've killed the souls of those rocks. And that's and they're looking at me like I'm a crazy man. In my mind, I'm just thinking, I'm like, there's a nugget of humor here. Mm-hmm. I don't have it honed in yet, but there's something there. And they were like laughing at me, and I was like, I don't know if it's, more they're laughing at me just because I'm being really goofy and we're, eating Mongolian beef, and I'm, talking about like the souls of rocks that don't exist and how we're going to, bash the people that kill rocks and make, you murdered rocks for that granite countertop. How dare you, you monster, stuff like that. And,
I remember there was a time. So I don't know, Ed, if you know, but Spencer and I both went to church-sponsored schools for college, right? So we both went to junior college at BYU up in Idaho, and then I transferred down to BYU in Utah. And so very conservative. You even have to sign an honor code that you'll, not cheat, not steal, not do all these things. But very conservative values. And we were in we get together once a week for this thing called Family Home Evening, where you get together with a bunch of other young people and you have an activity and there's a spiritual thought and all these things. Well, they wanted to do this thing where we'd gather at this courtyard of this apartment complex for these girls that lived in our neighborhood. So we'd gather there once a week, and they would always spotlight one apartment complex. And so they try to get to know you. So you'd be in front of, 50 to 150 other, college-age kids. Again, very conservative. And they give you some topics, tell us about your favorite color, tell us about your whatever, to get to know you. And our topics for our apartment, whether there were 3 other guys and myself, were, your best one-liner. And I was like, oh, I'm going to kill this. And so we get up there, and my name's, so all my roommates go, and I'm like, my name's Steve Madura. And they're like, okay, your best one-liner. And I'm like, I might not be Fred Flintstone, but I bet I can make y'all bedrock. And it was like, argh! And everyone was just like, cricket, cricket. And one guy in the back was like, bah! And he's like loud and pointing, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, you sicko. Yeah, that was called not knowing your audience. I did get several calls for dates that weekend. I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, that was an example of now very humorous. At the time, I was like, I'm so embarrassed.
That's so funny.
No, I still was pretty proud of myself. Though. It was pretty funny. And I still use that one line to date. No, but no, and I think that just. As we talk about, part of this podcast is just finding the humor in life, finding fun in life, whether it's in entertainment, whether it's being parents, because there is a lot of humor there, man. There's a lot of material there with kids, from pooping and all the funny things they say and all the. I mean, it's all humor. But there's so much not funny stuff out in the world today, and there's so many tragedies and tempests and earthquakes and horrible things going on. It feels so good just to laugh.
Yeah,
man.
And it's so easy to contribute to the not good stuff. It's so easy to complain. It's so easy to call someone out and
get cynical.
But man, if you get someone to laugh, there's nothing like it.
Isn't there some statistic though that says like children laugh like 4,000 times a day and the average adult laughs like 42? I'm like, that is horrible. Yeah, right. That is horribly depressing.
Right.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but like when I can make someone laugh, like if I can really get them to laugh, or like they lose control, and it's like it's that what I call church laughter, where like you shouldn't be laughing, but yet you can't stop yourself and you're trying, but like no matter how hard you try, like when I can get someone laughing like that, like there's a part of me that like I go home at the end of the night and it's like, man, I feel like I did something good today, and it's like maybe I should feel better about like being a good father or being proud of some sort of accomplishment, but it's like I made someone laugh so hard that they couldn't control themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a rewarding feeling personally.
Ed, maybe you know this, but there's one comic, and I'm not sure if it's Brian Regan or if it's it wasn't Mitch Hedberg. Anyway, there was some comedian that said that he used to tell jokes to his mom, and he knew that it was Gene Wilder, actually. It was Gene Wilder, who played Willy Wonka, of course, in Blazing Saddles and many other Young Frankenstein, a lot of Mel Brooks films. I watched an interview before he passed away, and he said that he would know if a joke was funny if he could make his mom pee her pants, because she had, a hard time controlling herself, whatever, and so he would laugh, and then she's like, I tinkled, and he's like, I did it! Like that was like his badge of honor, so... That's the bar you set. You can make somebody pee their pants.
That's awesome.
Good. You done some good in the world today, Stapleton.
I don't remember who it was. It might have been Seinfeld, but I can't remember. And they said that every time, just in their regular everyday life, if you make your friends laugh, you make the person at the counter laugh. If you make someone laugh, they carried around a notebook in their back pocket. Write down what you said or what the situation was. And that's something I started to do, and not because I'm aspiring to be a comedian and am gathering material, but when you fill up a little notebook and go back and look at it, it's really cool. It's a cool little experiment. And I'd encourage anyone just to get one of those little tiny pocket notebooks, stick it in your back pocket. And anytime you make someone laugh, just jot down what you said or what the situation was. And it's kind of cool after a little bit to go back and look at that. You might surprise yourself.
It's like a laugh journal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Steve, you know what to get me for Christmas now. Laugh journal.
Stenopad, 96 cents. Done.
Exactly. Man, you went all out.
Yeah, right.
So let me
Very
ask you this, right? So we watched this Jerry Before Seinfeld Netflix special, which I thought was great when he had that little moment where he actually looks at the camera and he's talking about binge watching on Netflix. He's like, you're probably going to do this right after you're done with watching this.
Oh, yeah.
Which was so funny because I was like, it's true. I'm going to go back to watching Friends right after I'm done watching this. This is awesome.
And crack a sleeve of Oreos is what he said.
Yes. Yeah. Which is also true because it's exactly what I had next to me.
Is this a two-way camera?
I was like, he's watching me. This is awesome.
That's the whole bit about Night Guy, right? Screw you, Night Guy! Right. When you wake up in the morning, you're all tired.
So let me ask you this: do you think like Netflix is becoming kind of like the hotbed for comedy right now? Because I feel like in the last number of years, there's been like a drop off in comedy, or at least maybe the accessibility of comedy. But like, is Netflix where it's happening now? Is that going to be the new home of like great comedians putting their stuff out there? I mean, what do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, what was it? I forget at what point it was earlier this year when they announced that they were going to release a new comedy special every week for the rest of the year. And
right.
There isn't a place where comics really have that. There's not like a mecca. It's not like they're trying to get on Carson. There isn't a late night spot that'll make you.
Right.
HBO's not doing comic like they used to. VH1 used to have the comedy specials and even Comedy Central now, it's a lot more sketch comedy or animated comedy than it is stand-up. And so there isn't really, maybe besides Spotify or something like that, there isn't a place for comedians to get out there. And I think Netflix has done a smart thing because, they're pretty cheap to produce and they can get a lot of them out there. And if nothing else, a lot of people are going to be watching comedy that probably wouldn't otherwise. And
right.
It's all over Netflix now. You turn it on and there's 3 new specials from the last time you turned on Netflix. So yeah, I think, I don't know how long it'll last. I don't know, with every up, there's a down, and there was a comedy boom in the 80s and everyone had a club. And so I'm curious to see if Netflix keeps it up going into next year and how long they do. But, I think right now it's because, Seinfeld's doing it. Chappelle's got a couple more specials coming out. All the big guns are, have specials coming out on Netflix. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to do it just because it's a lot of good buzz right now.
Yeah. Something you brought up was you said Chappelle. And it's funny because I just a little while ago watched 2 specials that Chappelle's got that are fairly new on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle really makes me laugh. But obviously different style of humor than Jerry.
Right.
And so I was thinking there's these things that certain comedians do. So for instance, a big thing is the callback, right? So I'm going to tell a joke early in my set and it's going to get a big laugh, but it's not going to be like a closer, right? And I'm going to continue building. And then at the very end, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make a callback to that earlier joke. And that joke is going to be the one that slays.
Right.
And I'm going to finish and I'm going to end really, really, really high on a big high note. And that's how I go out.
Yeah.
Now, most comedians do that. But I noticed in one of the Dave Chappelle specials, he was telling these stories and talking about his life. And then he talked about the first time he met O.J. Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells this really, funny story. And then he kind of goes along. He starts, going back to the rest of his routine. And then he's like, the second time I met O.J. Simpson. And so it's like, ooh, we're going to, because he said at the beginning, I've met him 4 times. And he's like, so it's a callback. And I'm like, great. Because obviously I'm expecting him to make his callback at the end of the show being the 4th time I met O.J. Simpson, which it pretty much was. And that's where he ends. It's a huge laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to go off and he's like, oh, wait. I forgot to tell you. And then he tells another joke, but it did not get it was not the big laugh that the callback on the 4th time he met O.J. Simpson was.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I laughed through this whole thing, but it was at that moment that I became kind of critical and I was like, man, I'm like, you should have just walked off the stage and left it where it was because it was the biggest laugh of the night and everyone's going to want more.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to be as a comedian, right? You want people wanting more. And he came back and I was like, it was still good, but it wasn't the highlight. Now, I compare that to Jerry, watching this Jerry Before Seinfeld. I don't know that he made many callbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely don't feel like he necessarily ended his set, of that stand-up special on his biggest laugh. And so I started going back through and thinking, for instance, like I said, my favorite special of his was I'm Telling You for the Last Time, when he retired all his old material. He doesn't really have big callbacks in that one either.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking, I don't think he does that. He doesn't kind of follow that kind of formula.
Yeah.
He tells his funny observational stories and then he transitions into something else and he just kind of ends on something that's really funny and it's a good punchline to a good story or to something that's going on, but he's not trying to tie it all together in a nice little bow. It's no, this is just what it is. I kind of find that refreshing that some comedians will do that and they'll kind of hit that refrain, but then others just don't at all.
Yeah.
And that's kind of their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
When, as you saw with Chappelle, it was almost kind of distracting for you when you kind of could see the formula that he was trying to do, and you're like,
because you know what, it was perfect when he ended. When he ended on that, it was perfect. I was like, walk off the stage, peace out, drop the mic, don't look back. That is, I'm like, you've got it there. And then he kind of walks up. It's like, oh, wait. I'm like, no. I was like, you're still going to be funny. And he's Dave Chappelle. And so you're going to give him that benefit of the doubt when he comes back. But it was like, yeah, this is being filmed for a special, man. Finish that thing strong. Finish that thing. So when someone's like, oh man, the special's over, they immediately go to see if you have any other specials on Netflix. And they want to see something else.
Yeah.
But who am I? I'm just a guy on a podcast who knows nothing.
That's so not true, Spencer.
He's a comedian. He's making money.
Nobody puts my baby in a corner. Which, by the way, on a small side note, I saw this thing that came up on YouTube the other day. It was He-Man and Skeletor dance the Dirty Dancing scene. It's hilarious.
Ooh.
Laugh my tail off. Yeah, you should see it. So how are we going to wrap this thing up, Spence? What do you think? Should we make a question about comedians or situational humor in someone's life or favorite comedians?
I think I want to hear two things. I want to hear what's your favorite comedian and what's your favorite like comedy special or comedy album. Because I think
that's good.
I think that's kind of an interesting thing because everyone's got something different. Everyone's got their own take on it. So let's start with our guest of honor, Ed. Ed, who's your favorite comedian, and what's your favorite comedy album or special?
Wow, it's just a weird time that we live in because my favorite album is probably Bill Cosby's To My Brother Russell, whom I slept with whom I slept, and it's hard to say that now because it's got that, and he would have been someone that I probably would have considered to be my favorite comedian as well, and it's just like,
how do you separate the comedy from the person, right?
Right,
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Favorite comedian right now, at least, is probably Louis C.K. And favorite album, oh my gosh. Wow. Oh man. That's a tough one, dude.
Hard-hitting questions on the Fortress of Nerditude.
I'm telling you, you guys aren't messing around here.
Right?
Wow. I'm going to go with a newer one, I guess. And I'll say Chad Daniels, he has an album called You're the Best. Just because it's probably one that a lot of people aren't as familiar with. I could say Robin Williams Live at the Met or,
Sure.
A ton of others. But I'll just say that one for now, just because Chad Daniels is a newer comedian. He's not new, but a newer one who I'm really into and is doing a lot of really, really funny stuff.
What about you, Steve?
So I unfortunately don't know a lot of like specials. I mean, I've seen a lot of specials. I don't know them by name, unfortunately. But one that I really, somebody turned me on to, probably a few years ago, and I hadn't seen a lot of his stuff, but and I mentioned him earlier in the podcast. I love Mitch Hedberg. He's gone now, unfortunately, but he was just this super cool, laid back guy. He would very just kind of like one-liners that would make you think, that would kind of take a different angle. One of his lines that doesn't ring true with my life or anything, but he's like, I love it. He's like, I used to do drugs. I still do, but I used to too. Like that kind of like, like, I don't know. And so there was this one special that he did where he gets like 5 or 10 minutes into his special and he's like, man, you guys suck. And he's like, and he sits down and he's like, this is supposed to be my special. He's like, let's start again. Yep. And so he does, and he starts like 10 minutes and he starts his whole set again and everybody starts laughing and it's funnier. And he's like, that's better, and he keeps going. It was great. But I thought it was so cool that he would, on his own special, like sit down on the steps and be like, man, we got to start this thing over. This thing sucks. Yep. You guys, you're not laughing at my jokes, and like totally, wear it on the sleeve type of thing. So I love, he's a great comedian and kind of similar to him, Stephen Wright. We already talked about him, and kind of the king of the deadpan. Huge Dave Chappelle fan, but back in the day, I don't watch a lot of his stuff now, but the kids can't really be around. I love Louis C.K. I think he's great. Cosby. I actually saw Cosby in concert. Yeah. My wife got me a ticket for Father's Day back in 2003, 4, something like that. And he came out to L.A. where we were living, and he was late to the concert or to the show. And he comes in like a Stanford sweatshirt, and he's like, I just got off the plane. He like sits down on the stage, doesn't even sit on the stool, and it was funny. He did his old stuff. He did like the whole dentist and the Novocaine. So. But yeah, so Mitch Hedberg would be my go-to.
Okay, nice. For me, this is kind of hard because there's so many that are like so close. Like I'm with you guys. Like Bill Cosby. It's so hard now to be like, well, here's the comedian, because like we talked about, like the idea of you write humor based on your life experiences, and you try to pull from your own self, at least if you're authentic and true, to kind of who you are. It's like, where do you separate that out? So like that's kind of hard for me right now. But easily though, like my favorite special, like I've said it a few times, I'm Telling You for the Last Time by Jerry Seinfeld. Like it's just, I start smiling from the very beginning, and I smile and I laugh all the way to the very end. And by the time it's done, like my cheeks hurt. I mean, I feel like Barbie in Toy Story 2. She's like, "Oh my gosh, my cheeks hurt from smiling." But it's like if I'm looking just like just a comedian, say is like my favorite. Like there's the old Cosby stuff, but like I can't. Dave Chappelle is fantastic. Jerry Seinfeld's up there, but I probably have to say Richard Pryor.
Oh,
like,
right.
Richard Pryor's stuff, like even though like I really didn't kind of grow up in that era, but like his stuff is just so funny, and like he can go from being goofy and silly to talking about things that actually are going on, racial tension, things that are happening in society. But he does it in a way that like makes people laugh and can like disarm you, and you realize like he's actually kind of trying to have a conversation with you about what's going on around you, kind of like George Carlin did as well, right? Kind of that same kind of thing, and like I really love his stuff. Like if I see him on somewhere, someone's playing something, and I see a clip of Richard Pryor, I'm like, ooh, turn that up. I'm like, I want to hear this because I know that it's going to be good.
That's awesome.
So,
I remember one of my favorite movies when I was a kid was called The Toy. I don't know if you've ever seen it or Spencer, if you ever, with Jackie Gleason, where this rich kid goes to the store and he's like, you can buy anything you want in the store, and Richard Pryor's like a cleaning guy, and he's like, I want him. Well, you can't buy. He's a man, and then, so it has of course all these racial undertones as well. But he gets in this huge like blow up wheel, and he's like thinks nobody's listening. He's got his headphones on, his little Walkman. He's like, oh my gosh, Wonder Wheel, and it starts rolling through the store, and then it pops. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite movies with Richard Pryor. Fantastic movie.
Absolutely good stuff. Well, so that's going to be our question of the week for you, our super friends. Who is your favorite comedian? What's your favorite comedy album or slash special? I would have loved to have even talked about Mel Brooks for a good 10, 20 minutes because I love Mel Brooks. But anyway, let us know. You can always reach us on Twitter, which is at Fort of Nerd. You can get us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Fort of Nerd. And then long form answer, hit up that email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com. And we'll talk about it next week and we'll read your answers. Ed, I am so happy that you agreed to come here and that you were willing to accept my PayPal transfer to appear. Yeah.
It was so much fun. Thanks both of you guys, Spence and Steve, for having me on. It was a great time. I really enjoyed myself.
You are welcome anytime, my friend. So let our listeners, let the super friends know, which if there's probably like 3 of them out there that don't already know you, where can they once again find you on social media and on the greater interwebs?
On Twitter at Ed Placencia, also on the Married to the Games podcast, marriedtothegames.com, and Foot in the Door, which is footinthedoorpod.com.
Sweet. Well, from all of us here, thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. Thanks a lot, man.
May the laughs be with you.
And also with you.
Always.
Hey, Steve, do me a favor. We forgot to do something in the very beginning. So let's record it now so that I'll just edit it into place.
Oh, suck.
No, it's real simple. real simple. I know. I was like, dang it. I'm like, we forgot to do something. What is it? And we miss it like every...
We forgot to hook up the doll.
No.
Weird science? Yeah. Anybody?
Steve,
right.
You ready to do this, Steve?
No, you
dang it.
Sorry, do it again.
I don't think Steve's ready.
This is called outtakes.
Here.
All right, here we go.
You ready to do this, Ed?
Yeah, man.
I don't sound like that.
You ready to do this, Steve?
Let's do it, Spence. Punch it, Chewy.
Perfect.
My chair is like squeaking. I am so sorry. You're going to have to edit that. Listen to this. It's like, now it's not doing it.
I was going to say,
Of course.
I can barely hear
Take
you.
your car to the cart. Dang it.
Get
All
that
right.
WD-40 going.
There you go.
All right. This chair's about to break. Okay.